Hello Mabuhay, Antonio Rodolfo Soriano Jr. is here once again with another rant video, and this is the first rant video this 2026. Belated Happy New Year to all. And in this video, I am going to rant on, oh boy, this something that in many years, they should not have done this at all. It's called, underage consumption or access, of adult-rated content, by minors, either below 18 or 21. That depends on the content and laws of countries. This rant is meant to address the big ethical issues of people's development, between children and adults, and how to live a healthy life in real life and media as well. And no, I do not intend to bully some toxic community online, all because they use inexcusable excuses to justify their toxic behaviors, in both real life and social media. Okay, let's address a serious issue that too many people keep brushing off like it's nothing. Underage consumption of adult-rated content. This is not about being old-fashioned, overprotective, or anti-freedom. This is about responsibility, ethics, and the long-term consequences of exposing developing minds to material that was never meant for them in the first place. Adult ratings exist for a reason, and pretending otherwise does not make their harm disappear. So without further ado, let us start the rant. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. To start the rant, let me tell you what does it mean. Adult-rated content is labeled that way because it contains themes, language, behavior, or imagery that require emotional maturity, critical thinking, and moral grounding to process properly. Children and young teens do not yet have those tools. Their brains are still developing, especially in areas related to impulse control, judgment, and emotional regulation. When minors consume adult material, they are not learning faster or becoming more mature. They are being overwhelmed by content they are not equipped to understand. One of the most overlooked consequences of underage exposure to adult-rated content is something people rarely talk about: the early rejection of age-appropriate media. We are now seeing children deliberately avoiding preschool and children's media programming, not because they've outgrown it naturally, but because they've been conditioned to see it as embarrassing, inferior, or for babies. This is not even a real healthy development. This is premature abandonment of content designed to support early cognitive, emotional, and moral growth. This is something that I will not tolerate at all costs. Avoiding preschool content in favor of shifting to adult-rated content just to fit in. Oh, speaking of that behavior, let's take it for the worse. What makes this situation worse is how normalized it has become hit online. Some communities actively pressure minors to watch adult-rated shows, movies, or online content, just to fit in. If you don't watch it, you're labeled as boring, immature, or out of touch. That peer pressure is dangerous. It trains poor little kids to ignore boundaries, and consume content not because they're ready, but because they're afraid of being excluded by a lot of people in the society, no matter what. What a shame. Let me say this one more time. This is dangerous behavior. Early childhood media is carefully designed to support developing brains. Repetition, simple narratives, music, and emotional reassurance are not flaws. They are tools. When children skip these stages, they do not become advanced. They lose foundational development. A developing brain needs structure before complexity. When adult content replaces age-appropriate material too early, it overwhelms rather than educates, like it should be. That imbalance has consequences that don't always appear immediately, but they accumulate over time. Another major problem is how adults sometimes enable this behavior. There are parents who shrug and say, well, everyone watches it anyway, or creators who say, it's not my responsibility who watches my content. That mindset is irresponsible. While creators cannot control every viewer, they do have a responsibility to label content accurately, enforce age restrictions, and avoid deliberately marketing adult material in ways that attract minors. So sad. I wish those children be protected by their good parents, with education and mentorship that shapes them for the good. As these children grow older, many begin to realize something unsettling. They rush through childhood. What once felt like being mature turns into a big regret. They look back and realize they discarded joy, imagination, and innocence just to fit in or feel accepted. During early childhood and pre-adolescence, the brain is still forming its core structures. This is the stage where repetition, gentle storytelling, music, simple problem solving, and emotional reassurance play a very critical role for them to know. Preschool and children's shows are not stupid. They are intentionally designed to match a developing brain's capacity to be sustainable and a healthy lifestyle. When children refuse this stage and jump straight into adult-rated material, they are skipping foundational steps, not advancing beyond them. It makes them the opposite. What replaces that foundation is often confusion. Adult-rated content introduces themes such as cynicism, sexualization, extreme violence, moral ambiguity, and social hostility. A developing mind lacks the tools to contextualize these themes properly. Instead of learning patience, empathy, and emotional regulation, children absorb shock value, sarcasm, and desensitization. The result is not maturity, but emotional imbalance. Another serious issue is how online culture rewards this behavior, that is undeserved. To be honest, children who reject age-appropriate content early are often praised for being advanced or based. Meanwhile, those who still enjoy children's shows are ridiculed. This creates a false hierarchy where growing up too fast is celebrated, and healthy development is mocked. That social pressure does real damage. As time passes, many of these individuals reach adulthood carrying something they didn't expect: regret. Regret over a childhood they never fully experienced. Regret over moments they never fully experienced. Regret over moments of joy, imagination, and innocence that they threw away to appear mature. This regret often surfaces later in life, when nostalgia hits and they realize they rushed through the very stage they can never return to. You cannot rewind childhood. Once it's gone permanently. Many adults try to reclaim it, through nostalgia, collecting children's media, or revisiting shows they once mocked. But it never feels the same, because the emotional context is different. What should have been experienced naturally becomes something more, and instead, there is also a psychological cost to growing up too fast. Children who abandon age-appropriate content early often struggle with identity, emotional regulation, and content boundaries later on. They may become desensitized, constantly seeking more extreme material just to feel something. That cycle does not end well. It escalates. Some argue that children are simply choosing what they like. But choice without informed judgment is not real freedom. It is exposure without proper guidance and direction. True guidance means allowing children to grow at a pace that aligns with their mental and emotional readiness, not forcing them to perform maturity for social approval. This is not an argument against adult content existing. Adults have the right to adult material. The issue is timing. Development has stages, and skipping them at all causes long-term consequences that are rarely acknowledged until it's too late. A healthy society should protect childhood, not rush children out of it. Age-appropriate content exists to nurture imagination, security, and emotional intelligence. Rejecting it too early in favor of adult material does not make someone stronger, it makes them vulnerable, in ways they may not recognize until adulthood. The truth is simple but uncomfortable: growing up too fast robs people of something irreplaceable. We should stop encouraging minors to abandon childhood prematurely and start reminding them that there is no shame in growing at the right pace. Childhood is not a weakness, it is a foundation, and to be very clear and honest, once again, as these children grow older, many begin to realize something unsettling. They rush through childhood, usually until age 15. What once felt like being mature turns into regret. They look back and realize they discarded joy, imagination, and innocence just to fit in or feel accepted. Childhood cannot be replayed. You don't get a second run. Many adults attempt to reclaim what they missed through nostalgia, collecting old media, or revisiting children's shows they once mocked. But it never feels the same, because the moment has passed. This regret is not hypothetical. It is common, and it exists because no one told them it was okay to grow at their own pace. No one defended childhood when it mattered. And let's turn to the online side of toxic behavior. Then there's the algorithm problem. Platforms are designed to maximize engagement, not protect children. Once a minor clicks on borderline content, recommendation systems can push them further into material that becomes increasingly inappropriate. This is not even accidental. It's a structural issue that platforms must definitely take accountability for, rather than shifting the blame entirely onto users. Let's also be clear, consuming adult-rated content too early can distort a young person's understanding of relationships, authority, conflict, humor, and morality. It can normalize aggression, vulgarity, exploitation, or nihilism before a child has a solid foundation of values. That damage is subtle, but long-lasting. You don't always see it immediately, but it shows up later in behavior, attitudes, and how people treat others, both real life and social media. Some people defend this by saying, it's just fiction, or it's satire. That excuse does not hold up. Satire still requires maturity to interpret correctly. Without that maturity, minors often take exaggerated or harmful behavior at face value, or worse, imitate it. Satire is not a free pass to expose children to content that undermines healthy development. On social media, when minors create or engage in wholesome, age-appropriate content, they're mocked or accused of being cringe. But when they engage with adult-rated material, suddenly people look the other way or even encourage it. That hypocrisy sends a dangerous message, that innocence is something to be ashamed of, and recklessness is something to be celebrated or glorified. But let me clarify this. This isn't about banning creativity or policing taste. Adults are free to watch what they want. The issue here is boundaries. A society that cannot enforce basic content boundaries for minors is failing in its duty of care. Protecting children is not censorship, it is stewardship. As someone who values moral responsibility and human dignity, I find it deeply concerning how casually this issue is treated. We should be teaching young people that it's okay to say no, okay to wait, and okay to grow at their own pace. Maturity is not proven by consuming adult content early. It is proven by discipline, respect, and self-control. Now for my serious anger tone part of my rant. Now let me be direct, because this is where patience runs out. Why would you allow kids to do such things in the first place? Why would adults sit back and pretend this is harmless? Children did not create this problem. Adults did. Parents who don't monitor, platforms that prioritize engagement over safety, creators who hide behind disclaimers while clearly attracting minors, communities that pressure kids to consume adult content just to fit in. This is not freedom, it is abandonment. And don't insult intelligence by saying, kids are smarter now. Intelligence does not replace emotional readiness. A child can understand words without understanding consequences. Adult content introduces cynicism, desensitization, and moral confusion long before a child has the tools to process it. Then, when kids imitate what they see, language, attitudes, behavior, everyone acts shocked. That outrage is very dishonest. You expose them to adult material and now you're surprised by adult behavior coming out of a child? What's truly infuriating is the cowardice. No one wants to say number. No one wants to enforce boundaries. But refusing to protect children is not kindness. It is negligence. Adult-rated content is not a rite of passage. It is not proof of maturity. It is not something minors are entitled to. Ignoring that boundary does not make society progressive. Let me make this concrete with examples, because abstract discussion alone clearly is not enough. These are fictional scenarios, but they reflect patterns that are happening far, and it must not be copied too often. Take Mark, age 10. Mark is watching Beavis and Butthead, a show clearly labeled for adults due to crude humor and themes. He laughs, but he doesn't understand the satire. What he absorbs instead is mockery, vulgar language, and disrespectful behavior. When that language shows up at school, adults blame his attitude, never the content he was allowed to consume. Then there's Alyssa, age 11, who watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey because it was trending online. She thought it was cool and not for babies. That movie deliberately twists a children's character into violent horror. This isn't harmless curiosity. It's the erosion of content boundaries, where shock value replaces emotional safety. Now look at the other side of the issue. Joshua, age 8, refuses to watch Junior on the Job or other preschool-style educational programs. not because he outgrew them naturally, but because older peers told him those shows are cringe. And falling behind life. Content designed to teach cooperation, problem-solving, and empathy is rejected, not due to readiness, but social pressure. Or Nicole, age 9, who openly mocks children's shows while binge-watching adult animated series. She believes maturity means consuming content meant for people twice her age. What she's really learning is that kindness and simplicity are weaknesses, and that sarcasm and cruelty are strengths. These examples highlight the same pattern: children skipping developmental stages, not evolving beyond them. Adult-rated content becomes a substitute for age-appropriate learning, and the damage is quietly normalized. By the time the consequences appear, emotional confusion, desensitization, identity issues, everyone acts surprised. This is exactly why boundaries matter. Children should not be shamed for enjoying content made especially for them, and they should never be praised for consuming material that they are not developmentally ready to process. When this line is crossed repeatedly, it stops being an exception and becomes a systemic failure. Then there's the culture of rushing childhood out the door. Kids are taught that enjoying age-appropriate shows means they're behind, cringe, or babyish. Meanwhile, watching adult content becomes a badge of honor. That mindset is destructive. Childhood is not a flaw to be corrected. It is a stage that must be lived fully, or it will come back later as regret. And yes, regret is real. Many people grow up only to realize they threw away their childhood trying to act grown before they were ready. They look back and feel cheated, not by rules, but by adults who failed to protect them. You don't get to redo childhood. Once it's gone forever. What angers me most is the cowardice. No one wants to be the one to say no. No one wants to enforce boundaries. Everyone is afraid of being labeled strict, outdated, or controlling. But protecting children is not oppression. It is responsibility. If you can't say no to a child when it matters, you are not being kind, you are being careless. And let's be very clear, minors are not the villains here. They are curious, impressionable, and easily influenced. The blame lies with adults who knew better and chose convenience over duty. With systems that allowed unrestricted access, with communities that normalized behavior that should have been stopped early. Adult-rated content is not a rite of passage. It is not a shortcut to maturity. It is not proof of intelligence. It is content meant for adults. Period. Ignoring that boundary doesn't make society progressive, it makes it negligent. If we truly care about children, we need to stop pretending this is harmless. We need to stop rewarding premature adulthood, and start defending the right to grow up properly. Protect childhood, enforce boundaries, do better, because kids deserve better than being sacrificed to algorithms, clout, and laziness. At this rate, this issue is not going away by pretending it's normal. Childhood deserves protection. Age-appropriate content deserves respect. Boundaries exist because development has stages, and skipping them has consequences. If we truly care about the next generation, we must stop normalizing underage exposure to adult material, and start defending the right to grow up properly. Childhood is not a weakness. It is a foundation, and once it is destroyed, it cannot be rebuilt. So here's the bottom line: adult-rated content is not for kids, and pretending otherwise is harmful. Platforms need stronger safeguards, parents need to be more engaged, creators need to be more responsible, and communities need to stop pressuring minors to cross lines they are not ready to cross. This is not about fear, it's about wisdom. If we truly care about the next generation, we must stop normalizing underage exposure to adult material and start protecting childhood again. Because once innocence is taken away too early, it cannot simply be restored with an apology or an excuse, and you might die with a flawed history later on, if you were too sick or too long, or being murdered. And that's all for this rant. Sorry for it's too long, but we needed to expose the truth on why kids should not unattentively watch or consume adult-rated content while underage. And no, I am not bullying people who made those content in the first place. All I did was to address all the ethical flaws to ensure kids live a sustainable childhood while it lasts. Stay safe, and always train your kids on how to live a life with a smile. Give proper freedom, and avoid occasions that leads to lost childhoods with regret. Anyways, this is Antonio, signing off. See you in the next video. Once again, Happy New Year 2026, to God be the glory.